If you want to learn C, you gotta roll up your sleeves and get to work. It's going to take a bit more than one video, so who's ready to get to work? And it's like I say, the best way to learn is by doing. Now, wouldn't it be nice if there was something that would give you a challenge? Well, fortunately for you, there is. The Advent of Code. These start every year on December 1st. By the time this video goes live, this year's Advent of Code will not have started, but we can still do the prior years. I'm just going to walk through problem 1 from 2023. So if you want to follow along, just go to adventofcode.com 2023 day 1. You can read through the problem intro. I'm just going to jump down to the important part of the problem. Most of these problems are going to have an input. That means we are going to need a file. Okay, this problem is something about calibration values, and we're going to read something on each line. We need the first digit and the last digit from each line. In that order, that seems important. And those two digits will be formed into one 2-digit number. You'll notice the important parts are highlighted. Let's take a look at the example. This first line has a 1 at the start and a 2 at the end, so that makes 12. Easy enough. The second has a 3 and an 8 sort of in between all the text. That makes 38. Okay, this third line has quite a few numbers, but we will form 15 from the first and the last digits. And this last line, I think it's showing if there is only one number, that number makes the 2-digit number. Here it's 17, so that makes 77. Alright, but finally we need to sum up all the numbers we get from the data. In this example, we should get 142. Let's see if we can code up and get 142 with the test data. I'm going to copy these lines here and paste them into test.txt. Since I'm on Linux, all I gotta do is highlight the text and then middle click to paste. Okay, now let's start making our program, starting with main.c. We are going to need stdio.h and our main function with argc and argv. I'm running NeoVim with an LSP for C, so I just type in main and the autocomplete pops up. Then I gotta just hit Ctrl+Y to accept, and it just puts the code in. Of course, it's not perfect, and I don't want this exit success, so let's change that to 0. Alright, let's stop here and make a quick list of what we might need to do. First, we have to check if we have enough arguments, which is going to be 2. We're going to open the file, then we're going to parse the file, and that will consist of reading each line, looking for the first and last digit, changing those digits to a number, and then adding that to a sum. And then finally, we're going to output that sum. Let's do step 1. We are going to check if argc is 2. If it is not, we will output a message and return 1. Let's compile and test that. Awesome. Works as intended. We don't want to try opening a file that doesn't exist. Next, we need to open the file for reading. That's a file pointer. I will just call it file. Let's make that the return value of fopen with argv1 and r for reading. And we do need to check if our file is null. If it is null, we need to print a helpful message and go ahead and return 1. Let's compile and test that. Alright, works with our file, and works as intended if our file is null. Alright, back in our C file. Now we need to parse our file and have the sum at the end. I'm going to declare a variable sum. This is an unsigned int. That just means it will not hold negative values. We shouldn't get anything negative, but let's be sure. Okay, let's make a function to get the sum from the file. I'll return an unsigned int, and it will take a file pointer. Let's go to the bottom and write the implementation. Let's start by initializing the unsigned int. I'll call sum to 0, and just go ahead and return that. Okay, in our last videos, reading a file line by line, we used fgets. Today we will need a different function, getline. fgets reads in the same amount of characters at a time. This might cause errors for our calculation because each line is different and our buffer will be filled with junk beyond the red line. Getline will read in until a \0 is read, and that will give us the exact line and nothing more. If you are on Linux, you can run man getline in the terminal. That will give you the manual or the readme for using getline. If you're not, we can always go to man7.org's webpage, so we can use this as our guide to read our file line by line. We need a couple of size t variables, call them len for length and red. If we take a look at the Wikipedia, size t is the return type from size of. We haven't used that, but the readline function will allocate some memory and it will return how much it read into our red variable. And we need a car pointer. This will act like our buffer. The whole line will be put into this variable, and our variable red will be how many cars are in this buffer. And since we don't know how many lines are in the file, we need to use while. Alright, this might look a little odd, but we are calling getline and setting the return value into red. We need extra parentheses so we can check if red is not -1. -1 means there's nothing else to read into the file. This syntax allows us to set the value to red and then check that value. As long as red is not -1, we will keep reading a file from the line. For now, let's print out the line. Okay, back in main, let's set the return value to our variable sum. Let's recompile and test it. Okay, looks like we read the file just fine. Let's look back and see what we need to do again. That's right. Combine the first and last digit we find. Okay, let's declare two car variables, first and last. Let's make two functions to find these values. Back up top, let's declare get first digit. It's going to return a car and take in a const car pointer, which is our line, and then the length that was read. Okay, I'm going to copy paste. Shift V highlights the line, hit Y to yank, aka copy, and then P to paste the line. Now just got to change the name to get last digit. Now I'm going to copy both of these. Shift V highlights. I have the first one. Now I'm going to press K and it highlights the next line down. I'm going to press Y to yank. That copies both those lines. Then you can press Shift G to go to the bottom of the file. Then P to paste in the lines. Okay, let's start on get first digit. I'll declare a car variable digit. We are basically going to do a linear search. Start from the first car and move over one at a time until we get our digit, which should be the first. So our for loop will start at 0. Make sure we are less than the length and increment I by 1 on each loop. Now each loop, let's check if it's a digit. Fortunately for us, there's a function isDigit. We can just write a simple if statement. If isDigit, passing our current value, line of I. You might be wondering, wait, line is a const car pointer. Yes, it is. In C, a pointer can be the start of an array. When you see a car pointer, just realize that's going to be a string. And in C, strings are represented as an array of characters. And we pass it as a pointer so we have the location of this array. I know, that may not make much sense, but don't worry, I'll make a video on covering arrays and pointers soon. For now, just know that a car pointer is a string of characters, also known as an array of characters. Okay, so if the current car is a digit, let's just assign that to digit. And I'll do what's called a cast. This is going to make sure that the line I is actually a car. Okay, I'll go ahead and return our digit since we found it. Right? Well, no. Currently, this will loop through our entire line and we will return the last car that's a digit. That's not what we want, and that's why C gives us the keyword break. If we find our digit, we will break out of this loop and just return the car. All right, let's go down to get last digit function. We're going to declare a car variable again. This time we are going to go backwards. We will start I at length minus 1. You might be asking, why would we start at minus 1? Okay, real quick. Arrays are zero-based, meaning the first is 0, and the second is 1, and so on. Every location in the array is actually off by 1, because it starts at 0. So therefore, the last one is off by 1 also. Alright, so we will keep looping as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, and each loop we decrement by 1. Okay, if you recall, we are using getline instead of fgetS. This is the reason here. Let's just say, for example, we used fgetS and our buffer was, say, 64. Then the length value would be 64. And let's just say we only had 12 characters in the line variable. That would mean we would have about 52 characters that are junk. It could be data, it could be a number, and that would just give us bad results. Okay, we will do the same thing. Check if the current car is a digit. If it is, we will assign it to the digit and break out of the loop and return that car value. Let's go back into our getSum function and go ahead and call these functions and assign them to the car variables. And let's print them out so we can see if this is working. Okay, let's compile and run it. Looks good, even the last one is correct. The first one is also the last, so we get 77. Now we just have to change those car values to an integer so we can sum them up. And C has the function a to I, ASCII to integer, but that takes in a car pointer. And we have 2 car values, so we need to make a car pointer variable. We will make a car array of 3. You might ask, why 3? Well, that's because C uses the \0 character to determine the end of a string. The \0 is a null terminator. So we will use this notation here. We can declare and initialize an array like this. We have the type and then the name of the variable followed by the array notation with the length of the array we want. On the right side of the equal signs, we make squiggly braces and set the values. In our case, we have first, last, and the null terminator. Now we have a string we could pass to a to I. There. All right, my LSP isn't perfect. It auto-imported the wrong header. Let's go back up and fix that with stdlib.h. There we go. Let's go back and print out the sum and recompile and test. Great. 142 is correct. Now, let's get the actual puzzle input. I'm going to copy pasta this into a file. I'll call it input.txt. Whoa, 999 lines. All right, moment of truth. Let's run it with our input.txt. Not right. This last one should be 13, not 16. If you don't look closely, you wouldn't catch it. Some of these are right, but something is off. Let's go back into main. Oh, I passed the len variable, not the read variable. The read variable has the actual size of the array. And we need to free the line since we set the line variable to null. Okay, this should work now. Let's recompile and run it again. Everything looking okay. Let's take this and input it into the answer box. Awesome, that's the answer. Awesome, way to level up by doing. The code will be hosted on GitLab. Link will be in the description. And thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment to defeat that algo monster.